Welcome to this webinar on the new and very exciting and controversial film called Executive Order. And it is a Brazilian film directed by Lázaro Ramos. And we are extremely thrilled to have the director, to have Lázaro Ramos with us here today. And he is not only the director of this very important film that some of us in this room have just been watching and that still is really with us in a very strong way, and that many of you might have watched before and or not and will be watching in the future, but he's also in Brazil and beyond a very famous actor. He's an important social voice in Brazil as a program host and director of films like this, and also as a writer. And we also have with us two other very important social voices from Brazil, social commentaries. They are both law professors. It's Conrado Hübner Mendes, who is a law professor at the Sao Paulo Law School, and who is an important commentator in Brazilian media and constitutional law theorist. And Allyne Andrade Silva, who is professor of law and public policy at INSPER and also deputy executive director at Brazil Human Rights Fund. So this will be a very important and interesting hour that we have together. My name is Siri Gloppen. I am the director of the Center on Law and Social Transformation, Law Transform, based in Bergen, Norway, and also of the Bergen School of Global Studies. And the two institutions are hosting this webinar together with Cine Latino, a film festival here in Bergen, where this film was the opening film of the entire festival, and that has already caused a lot of debate. So we're really, really happy to have you with us today. And I would like to start by giving the word to Lázaro Ramos and to have you tell us a bit about why this movie came about and why it became the movie that it did.
Hello, it's a huge honor to be here today. I will start to speak in English, but today I will speak in Portuguese because today is a kind of emotional day. I have some friends with Corona and many stuffs, and I need to say in the right way some ideas about this movie. It's important to me. And first of all, I think for me, it's important to speak that today. It's not exactly about the movie, but all my conversations today, I am talking about one subject that is important for all the world, but here in Brazil is urgent. Today is the day before that 325 people died for Corona. And now here in my country has an ideological fight, and that needs to stop. I need to start this conversation talking about it. There are many lives, there are many families that is crying now, and my first line here is asking for the responsible to combat the Corona and the authorities, stop the ideological fight and do what they need to do what they must to do. That's it. I'm an artist, but today, this day is one really special day that I think all of us need to speak about this dangerous war. Okay, and now I will speak in Portuguese because I am improving my English and I need to speak well about this movie, this incredible movie that I am really happy and honored to speak with you. So, my friends, Medida Provisória é um filme que vem do teatro. Ele começou em 2011, de uma peça chamada Namíbia Não, escrita por Aldre Anunciação, um autor baiano, que fez um exercício de pensar um futuro distópico, onde um advogado processa o Estado brasileiro pelo tempo de escravidão, o Estado reconhece que é uma reparação social adequada, mas como não tem dinheiro suficiente para remunerar tantos negros e negras, decide-se falar para os afrodescendentes, que no filme são chamados de melaninas acentuadas, que eles devem voltar para a África, já que estão se queixando disso. É um filme que, quando eu conto nessa sinopse, ele parece ter apenas um lado, mas eu trabalhei nele o máximo possível, e isso desde 2012, para que o filme tivesse várias vozes, trouxesse várias perguntas e engajasse as pessoas e acolhessem ela no assunto. Não vou falar mais, porque eu sei que o Miguel Silveira, querido amigo cineasta que vai fazer a tradução, já está com uma demanda grande aí de tradução, e eu sei que a gente vai ter muitos outros detalhes para falar sobre. Obrigado.
Thank you, Lázaro. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
So Lázaro said that this is a film that comes from the theater, from a theater play called Namíbia Não in Portuguese, which means Namíbia No. And this particular play was written by an author who did an exercise into imagining a dystopian future where this lawyer character sued the Brazilian state for reparations. But since there was not enough money available to pay back all of the African descendants in Brazil, they decided instead to ask everybody to depart and go back to Africa. So that was the premise for this film to start, which Lázaro worked on for many years. And among other things, it was very important for him, and he mentioned that even though it might not seem this way, that the film looked at all of the sides of this question. He did a thorough investigation and put a lot of effort in investigating and depicting what could be understood as both sides of this argument. So that stands.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And actually, this is a very interesting part of the setting that you have for the documentary, that it is, in a way, a reaction to the use of law. And law plays a role throughout the movie in many different ways. Also as a protector, even as the law changes into what many would say is an illegal terrain for law, if you want to put it that way. So I'm really, really pleased that we have two law professors to help us comment on the picture that we see in that you're portraying, and also because if we look around the world in the contemporary time, we see that both in the context of Brexit and in the context of the US, there is both a lot of fight that takes place within the realm of the law, but there is also a reaction to liberal rights and to law and the use of law in different ways. So I wanted to put that out there before I give the word to you, Conrado, Hübner Mendes, as to comment on the film from and on what Lázaro has been saying now from the Brazilian perspective.
Hello. Olá, Lázaro.
Oi, Conrado.
It's a pleasure to meet you, and really honored to be here. For those who don't know Lázaro, for the foreigners, Lázaro is a big star, and really one of the most important actors of his generation here in Brazil. And I have to say, well, I loved the movie. I enjoyed watching it, and I've been reading the last few days about how successful it has been in the international festivals it has been playing. It still hasn't been launched in Brazil, for obvious reasons. It is facing some uncertainty about when it will be premiered. But I have, I think, two or three points to start with. And I think that the film talks, the first main topic I think the film touches is about what we can call a backlash against inclusive policies directed to minorities, especially racial minorities. There is a reaction, a white reaction about it's a radical turning backwards from the perhaps very modest but yet very significant improvements in the policies directed to the Black community, mainly to start with the sorts of inclusive policies in universities, the quotas, and in the film it is about the reparations for slavery, and of course this backlash cannot be reduced or be entirely attributed to the current government. The current government did not bring a particular new mode of authoritarianism and violence for Black people. It might have gotten a little bit worse in terms of explicit incitement of violence, in terms of how police brutality has been sort of legitimized, and it has been like that for a long time. So that there is in Brazil, as in the movie, a part of the population that apparently, and that's my question for Lázaro, that apparently wants to finally become white. That's the message at the end of the movie. Not the message, but that's one part of the very end of the movie, when that particular white population celebrates the success of that the policy of expulsion. So this hidden desire is not new. The desire to become white is not new. It is at the very foundation of our republic after the end of slavery. And basically, this is one really serious and permanent and historical question about the Brazilian history. But the message of the movie about the way out of this trap, about the solution, about how to overcome the racial divide, it seems to be very reconciliatory. It seems to really try to as Lázaro started his talk today, he started, well, let's stop this war. There are many passages of the movie with this message. There is a talk by Capitu at one point. There is a talk about Antonio. This is also my country. So the message is not about rage. It is about reconciliation, and it is about doing something differently. So I have other points, but I've already talked a bit, and I wanted to hear Lázaro.
Ok. Conrado, primeiro eu preciso dizer que é muito bom estar aqui com o irmão de um dos grandes amigos que eu tenho, que é o Rodrigo Mendes, seu irmão, que é um homem exemplar aqui para todos nós. Preciso fazer essa referência antes de responder. Me emociona muito cada vez que eu ouço alguém falar sobre esse filme, porque eu acho que o nosso objetivo foi concluído. Hoje a gente coleciona 34 críticas e é muito impressionante, que são críticas positivas, mas cada uma das pessoas se apegou a uma determinada parte da história. E isso é muito importante para mim. Quando nós começamos a trabalhar esse filme, a gente queria muito que tivessem várias vozes. Por isso que é um filme que tem várias idades de atores. Nós temos uma atriz com 80 anos de idade, até criança. Temos um ator oriental, temos atores brancos, negros, a maioria negra, mas tem uma diversidade de opiniões e perfis que eu acho importante. para que cada um se apegue a um dos momentos. Então, me emociona muito ver que você se emocionou com essa parte, fez sentido. Te confessando aqui qual é a minha parte, a parte do filme que mais me representa, é o poema que o seu Jorge fala perto do final do filme, enquanto está tomando banho. Se você me perguntasse assim, o que é que você quer falar com esse filme, Lázaro? Qual é a sua parte preferida? É justamente a parte mais poética. Há muitos anos eu trabalho com esse tema em várias obras na televisão, no teatro, na TV. E para mim é muito importante explorar esse caminho de oferecer alternativas civilizatórias. Para mim o filme se trata disso. A gente fala tanto das crises que a gente vive, né? Das crises ideológicas, das crises financeiras, das crises sociais. E eu acho que tem uma crise que é a crise civilizatória, que eu gosto muito que as minhas obras ofereçam alternativas. Sim, esse filme tem esse propósito. E por isso, inclusive, que ele mistura gêneros. Ele não começa como comédia à toa. Ele começa como comédia para relaxar as pessoas, para acolher as pessoas, para elas entenderem que vai ter um assunto daqui a pouco um pouco difícil de falar, mas que elas estão num campo seguro, porque a gente está se entretendo, mas encontrando alternativas de convivência. A proposta do filme é essa. Miguelzinho.
All right. So first of all, I would just like to acknowledge that it's very nice to speak to the brother of a dear friend of mine, a wonderful human being. So hello. And then when people talk about the film, Lázaro feels very moved because he understands that every person holds on to a specific element of this particular film. And he mentioned that the international success of the film has produced a lot of writings about it, a lot of criticism, positive criticism. And one thing that moves him tremendously is to realize that out of the 34 pieces that he read about the film, he can identify that each one of them is specifically speaking about a particular element that he wanted to address in the creation of the film. And then he mentioned that he was very, very happy to realize that Conrado was particularly interested in one of the specific elements that he spoke about as he made the film. And he continued and he said that for him, and he phrased it as, I confess, that the most important element in this particular film for me, the movement the most, is the poem that Seu Jorge reads towards the end of the film in the shower scene. And for him, the poetic elements of his film are what is the most interesting. Throughout his career, he has been working towards envisioning alternatives for a new mode of civilization in Brazil, I would assume. And this film has this particular intent to envision a new way of coexistence. And because of that, he devised his narrative in a way that it modifies from a comedic introduction, where he invites the audiences to participate and soften things a little bit, because something very, very important is about to happen, a very serious discussion. But by inviting the audience like this, he promises a safe space where this kind of conversation can actually exist. So the intent of the film can then succeed, which is, of course, to promote this idea of a new way of existing in a civilized society.
Thank you. I can see that Conrado has a lot of more questions, but I want to give the word to Allyne, Andrade. But before I give you the word, I want to just ask people to participate in the webinar to write questions they might have in the Q&A, and also people who are in the room to raise their hand, and we'll make sure that you will have time. But first, I would like to hear from you, Allyne. What are your sort of main reactions and questions to the film?
Hi, first, I'm really glad to be here, Lázaro. I'm a huge fan. I read all your books. I saw all your plays since you are from Olodum, so I'm really, really glad to be here. Very excited to be here. And my first impressions, first, I mean, I'm a Black woman, I'm a lawyer, and I was a affirmative action student in Brazil. So for me, was very important to see the way the pictures, the results of affirmative actions, and how Black people see education as a way to integrate, and how Black people with conscious, racial conscious, and with conscious of the inequality are all the time trying to offer pacific and civilizatory solutions to Brazil. But for the other side, was very emotional to me to see the movie, because even though no one asked me to go back to where I came from, it's very interesting to see. And I did a relation for how people see me, as right now I'm a member of a board, I'm executive director of an institution, I'm a law professor, and many times in my society, in the country I live, and where I have all my reference, even though I love Africa, I live outside the country, I'm Brazilian, I'm from Brazil, and all my history of the history of my family is in this territory, in this country. Many people ask to me why you are here. It's a way to all the time questioning if I'm really from this place and if I should be in some place. I will explain a little bit. So many times in Brazil and all over the world, you have to do a bar test to become a lawyer. And many people ask me how many times I did the bar test until I pass. How difficult it was for me to become an executive director, and was not easy, of course, but was not like, I don't have a tragic history to talk. I just can say like I'm from a poor family who really believed in education. They put everything they have in my education. I from the Black movement, and the Black movement teach me a lot of things. I have the opportunity to know about leadership, about the opportunities I have from this Black movement. And they also fight for public policy. I entered the university, I studied, and I did a lot of selections, worked for 10 years, and 10 years later, I become something. I did my master, I did my PhD or something like this. It's a common history. I mean, I was studying and one day I got this. But people, I feel like I deceive people when I have a normal story to say, because they really see my body as a body who can, I mean, my present is only justified if I have a history of suffering. If I have a history of effort, is not enough to justify why how can I say, deviating from the white privilege and for like the position of a white should be having and not me. But also for me, it was very interesting because sometimes I also feel, and this is a feeling that I see many Black women and Black people in Brazil, when you conquer some position or something, you feel like you are the last Black man in Brazil or the last Black woman in Brazil because no one is with you. I mean, it's terrifying that we still have in Brazil the first actor doing something in Brazil, the first Black director in Brazil in 2021, the first Black executive director, the first judge, the first something. And as we are the first, sometimes we feel also as the last Black man, because you don't have no one to forge forward, to sparking a resistance in the process. And sometimes you don't have peers even to relate. And many people really don't understand the life you live, the challenges you have. Sometimes I feel I'm the last Black woman in some place, and I feel many Black people feel like as they are the last one. The second thing who were very, very important to me in the movie was the discussion of reparations, because Black movement in Brazil since the 1930 years really discuss ways to repair the slavery system in Brazil. So we did this through public policy, like affirmative actions, like law against anti-racist laws, but we really have a discussion for reparations, not only for Afro descendants in diaspora like America, but also for Africans who has this like natural resource stolen from, Europeans countries. So, and we try to advance this discussion of reparations, maybe not individual reparations, but national reparations or reparations as a group. And these are very difficult discuss to advance in law, but we just have last year a report from the anti-racist, it's a huge name, it's the experts against intolerance, discrimination, religious intolerance, and other discrimination. It's a huge name from the expert, but her name is Tendai Atumi, and she just wrote, released a report fighting, asking for reparations in the global system. So it's a really discussion existing in law. And for people who study racial relations and critical race theory, this is a discussion we are trying to advance, like a way to do reparation, integrate people in the society and not dividing people. And the third thing I want to say is the last one, that for me, something that the movie really touched me, and this is a personal comment, is how, even though we are in a country who are all the time trying to say that we are not from here, or we don't deserve what we get, and trying to downsize the meaning and the contributions that Black people, and not only Black people, but also indigenous people and immigrants are giving all the time to build this country, you are still producing beauty for this world. And this is very important. When you say that the poetry is the most important element for you, for me, this is very important, because in our world, they are producing more intolerance, that are producing more divisions, that we are like, through a pandemic, we have someone producing beauty for the world and believing in humanity. I think this is about giving humanity for everyone and not accepting loss anyone because of racism or intolerance. It's a future that I want to live. So I hope you can build this future, a future that we have humanity and tolerance and beauty and poetry and movie and art for everyone. So I'm really glad to be here, and I don't have words to say how important to me as a Black person is to see someone saying something that sometimes I cannot say because I don't have words enough to picture this reality. So it's very important to have someone doing this for us and doing this with excellence. So thank you very much for your work.
Oh, thank you, Allyne. Falei a vocês que eu estava emocionado hoje, mas fico muito grato com suas palavras, muito honrado com sua presença aqui, Allyne, também. De verdade, é sempre bom quando a gente entende que a gente não está sozinho, tanto nas nossas intenções quanto nas nossas experiências. Quando você fala da sua experiência como uma pessoa negra, eu compartilho várias delas. Várias das coisas que você falou, claro que eu sou um homem negro, mas várias das sensações que você falou na sua primeira colocação são as experiências que eu tenho. Tentando trazer um pouco aqui para o filme, tem uma pessoa que foi muito importante nesse processo todo, é uma pesquisadora chamada Allyne Maia, que quando nós fomos fazer o último tratamento do filme, em 2017, que foi a última vez que a gente mexeu na história, eu pedi a ela que ela fizesse um dossiê para mim sobre cada cena, para que ela investigasse na vida das pessoas o que é que elas estavam debatendo e sentindo. Então, a Allyne fez um projeto até aqui, ó. é isso aqui, tem essa grossura, onde ela faz comentários sobre os temas da atualidade que estavam se debatendo. Muitos dos diálogos foram diálogos da vida real de Facebook que tem no filme. Para que o exercício que nós, enquanto roteiristas, fizemos de pensar esse futuro distópico tivesse uma base real, mesmo que a gente não tenha compromisso, mesmo porque a gente está fazendo um filme que é sobre um extremo para alertar sobre coisas que não queremos que aconteça. Mas, ainda assim, o trabalho da Allyne nos trouxe essa certeza de que essa experiência tem sido vivida por muitas pessoas e de que a gente precisa discutir ela. A gente precisa discutir ela. Claro que dentro do nosso campo das artes, claro que usando as narrativas que nos são possíveis. E eu queria falar um pouco sobre isso, porque é um tema espinhoso, é delicado de falar, mas eu acho que faz parte do processo de amadurecimento de uma nação. A gente poder olhar para essas questões e discutir a questão da reparação que a gente está falando, o que é que a sociedade pensa sobre isso, como se debate, o que é o mais adequado. É uma discussão que é válida e, na verdade, ela já está aí na sociedade. Tanto é que o filme, como eu disse, ele traz várias perguntas e, ao mesmo tempo, vários pontos de vista. E acrescentando uma coisa que eu achei muito linda e importante que você falou, estou reduzindo um pouco a resposta para o Miguelzinho não ficar desesperado aí na tradução, mas tem uma coisa que realmente era ponto fundamental ao contar essa história. Eu não queria que fosse um filme apenas sobre dor. Eu queria que fosse um filme também sobre a potência negra, sobre a beleza negra, na sua construção, na construção das relações, na produção artística. E é por isso que em cada frame do filme, em cada quadro, quando alguém daqui a um tempo for estudar o trabalho que esta equipe de pessoas tão apaixonadas fez, em cada frame tem uma coisa. Tem um personagem que troca uma arma por um livro, aquele livro quer dizer alguma coisa. Tem enquadramentos, tem fotografias que estão atrás. Tem um lugar, não vou contar para quem não assistiu, mas que quando chega, a câmera abre, tem um grande ícone das artes que está ali exposto. É para falar isso também, para que a gente não tenha como elemento que nos conta e que nos define apenas a dor. Isso é uma preocupação que eu tenho em tudo que eu faço, porque eu tenho muita vontade da gente assumir esse lugar que nos é de direito, de pessoas complexas, com qualidades, com defeitos, dores, desejos, e que a gente possa falar sobre todos os assuntos. Né? É por isso que esse é um filme lotado. Assim, ponto negativo de algumas críticas é essa. Parece que o diretor queria falar sobre muitos assuntos. Realmente, queria mesmo, tentei colocar, e espero poder contar outras histórias para a gente fazer com menos, partindo de um princípio de menos possibilidade de contar histórias, né? Para que a gente consiga falar, às vezes, de um só tema com mais fluência. I'm sorry, I talk a lot. Miguel, I talk to him that I need to speak slowly and less things.
More, speak more, speak more. So Allyne, I was very moved, and I want to thank you so much for. It's an honor to be here with you and hear your words. And it's important for us to know that we're not alone. And I share a lot of your experiences, even though I am a Black male. I do share a lot of your experiences, the experiences you described to us here. And I just want to point out that a researcher during the process of creation of this film, Allyne Maya, created something that I requested, was a dossier based on the questions that were being discussed at the time of that we made the film. It was the final changes that they did to the script. He asked this important researcher to do this work, and he showed the work to us. Like, that book is a compilation of the most important issues being talked about in social media that she was able to collect from Facebook and so on and so forth, and compile that in that particular book, which was used then to discuss what the film was talking about, in the sense that even though the film is a film about a dystopian, a film that tries to prevent, right? The intent is to try to prevent a potential future dystopia. It was also important for Lázaro that particular film was based on real events and real issues that were actually being talked about in reality at that particular moment. So the book that the dossier that he showed contains all of this research, which was, of course, done prior to the film. So he wanted to express that it was important to talk about reparation. It is important to talk about reparations. And even though it is very difficult for Brazil to talk about this history, it's paramount that we touch upon this wound and discuss how can it be possible for this to be indeed brought to become reality for us. So the film had that goal. It was very important. He also didn't want the film to be specifically about pain, which was a point that Allyne brought up as well. The film, yes, of course, it does talk about pain, but it also talks about the Black beauty, the Black magnificence in all it is that it is. And for him, that was super, super crucial, because it's important for the creators to define themselves as they really are, as a complex group of people, complex human beings, or not just one thing. And he believes that when the film plays, people catch on to that as well. So a few other points that he discussed is that when the film was discussed outside, a lot of the criticism mentioned, oh, the director wants to talk about many different things. And he said, yes, of course we want. There are many different things to talk about in the film, which is done and it portrays a myriad of different peoples, right? You can see there's a lot of people from different backgrounds in the film had this idea of promoting the complexity of the argument in and of itself. So, and again, he didn't want pain to be the defining factor in the portrayal of the people portrayed in the film as well.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. I have there is a comment in the, it's not a question, it's a comment in the, that was submitted and from Leonardo Brito. And he sort of says that Lázaro is a fascinating human being, the only director who get to assemble the biggest number of Black people in the technical team, as well as Black actors and actresses in a movie set. Congratulations, you're the best. And I wanted to tie that to some of what we discussed already. I mean, how important is this as part of bringing the film, but also that this is, I mean, this is a work of art. It's an artistic expression. It's not a documentary, even if in a way it is. So these are issues, as you say, that are current issues in our world. What does this film do that a documentary couldn't have done? How does it work? How does it operate on us when we see it? And what does it bring that you couldn't have done in a documentary?
Desculpa, vou ter que pedir a pergunta, que é uma pergunta meio filosófica, né, Miguel? Ela está falando sobre... esclarece um pouquinho para mim.
Yes. Ela falou que o filme, evidentemente, o filme fala de poesia, etc, mas eu achei o ponto mais interessante é que o que poderia esse filme fazer hoje, falando do que o filme fala, que um documentário não seria capaz de criar.
Uau! Uau! Eu acho que a ficção nos dá uma certa liberdade, não é? O documentário tem alguns compromissos com os personagens, lugares e com alguns fatos. Esse filme poderia ser feito a partir de um ponto de vista documental, mas ao fazer uma ficção, ele me dá a possibilidade de que, com estratégias de entretenimento, eu possa emocionar as pessoas, porque às vezes eu tenho a sensação de que as pessoas estão conscientes sobre esses temas todos que a gente fala. Elas têm conhecimento das coisas que acontecem, têm conhecimentos, inclusive, de números estatísticos que são ditos todo dia nas redes sociais, etc. A minha pergunta é se as pessoas estão sensibilizadas com tudo isso. E os artifícios desse filme específico é para sensibilizar as pessoas. Não é um filme que eu exponho dados estatísticos, apesar de ter a pesquisa. Não é um filme que eu exponho imagens documentais para misturar, apesar de no final ter uma homenagem. mas é um filme que ele se propõe a emocionar para que as pessoas se sensibilizem para além da consciência. Esse filme, aí falando de outros pontos de críticas que eu recebi, é um filme, teve um crítico que falou que o filme flertava com melodrama. E eu achei um elogio, na verdade, porque tem uma função, sim, de fazer as pessoas rirem e depois chorarem. É isso. E a partir daí, ao sentir essas coisas todas, que as pessoas fiquem mobilizadas e aí contribuam à sua maneira nessas causas todas que a gente fala, na luta contra o racismo, no fortalecimento das suas identidades, na luta contra os preconceitos. E eu queria fazer um comentário sobre a pessoa que mandou uma mensagem, falando que essa equipe do filme é uma equipe realmente muito especial, de pessoas muito talentosas e que trouxeram contribuições fundamentais para essa narrativa. Por exemplo, vou citar o nome de duas pessoas, o Alex Brolo, que fez o figurino, e o Thiago Marques, que fez a cenografia, fizeram uma pesquisa sobre linguagem afrofuturista que foi fundamental e que está lá na nossa tela. É uma linguagem que ainda foi pouco usada no cinema, e a pesquisa do Thiago e do Alex trouxe todo esse ambiente que as pessoas têm se deliciado tanto na nossa história.
Lázaro, desculpa, perdi. Thiago Brolo, Alex Brolo,
Thiago Marques e Alex Brolo.
Okay, so to answer the inquiry about documentary, what can this film do that documentary perhaps couldn't do? Lázaro said that a documentary has, in some sense, a little bit more of constraints because it has to be responsible to a particular subject or character that is depicting. Making this film in the fictionalized world allows him a little bit more artistic freedom, and he does utilize that in a way that is intended not to provide statistics, because he believes that the people who he's speaking to most likely already know about the statistics, because these statistics are presented on a daily basis online, on television, so on and so forth. And still, even though the statistics are known, not much is done to improve the issues that the film debates. So how then use a fiction film, in order to address those things in a way that perhaps a documentary couldn't do it? There are narrative devices that he utilized that are intended to make people cry, to make people laugh, right, to provide entertainment and pleasure. And from that, he intends to go beyond the rational and appeal to the emotional sense of the audiences. And by utilizing these devices, he believes he can be more effective in bringing some sort of change out of the people who already know about the statistical numbers that depict the issues that the film depicts in an emotional sense. So he talked about, one film critic mentioned that the film flirts with melodrama, and it's like, this is like, a wonderful thing to hear. Is a compliment, because it's intended to do precisely what I just described, and that's why fiction versus documentary. And then he mentioned, we comment on one of the questions that was posted here, talking about the crew and the people behind it. And he mentioned the two names, Thiago Marques and Alex Brolo, in the sense that the reason that this crew is extremely special, and the reason people relate so much to the film, is because all of these people behind, right, did tremendous research and tremendous work into the concepts and ideas of Afrofuturism, and you see that represented in the film. And because of it, because of the combination of all of these efforts, the film has got the response that it has.
Thank you. I see that the audience here is sitting just listening super closely. And I just want to ask if anybody would like to ask questions. Otherwise, I have many, and I'm sure both Conrado and Allyne also has. But I will ask one question to all of you, and it comes back to what I started with in the beginning, because to me, this film also puts a lot of nuance into law and the role of law in society. And in many ways, it reminded me, I did my doctorate a million years ago on South Africa and South African legal development and constitutional development. And this sort of ambivalence towards the law, that the law both has potential and liberating potential, but also there is a potential for backlash and abuse of the law, and law that is sort of used to destruct societies, but also this promise. In a way, some of the phrases echo the Freedom Charter, which is this very inclusive, that Conrado was talking about, reconciliatory and inclusive notion of being a country and going forward. So I would actually just like to hear all of your reflections on that, on the role of law in the film, and how it sort of puts this multifaceted and questions the role of law and in society in different ways. I don't know who would like to start.
Are you asking all of us, Siri?
Yes, I'm asking all of you. So
okay.
maybe you can start.
Okay. So I can start. Okay, Allyne, and then Allyne comes. I was wondering about this as well, and there was a question I wanted to raise related. It relates to law, but it relates to, it's broader than the legal question. It is about what we could call white illusionism. It is a sort of trickery, a play of appearances, a sort of cynicism, and in the film it sounds ironic, but there is a deep criticism on that. And the first element of illusionism is in language. And the film shows the different ways Black people are called. So from negros to afrodescendentes, and then there is this really funny name, if I may, which is melanina acentuados, the people with high melanin. So it's a sort of euphemism that goes all over the film and the language, etc. So this is one first thing. The very name of the policy of extradition is a funny name. It's rescue yourself, go back to Africa, and we are paying for you to go back to Africa. And finally, with law, there is a legal sophistication there. There is a legal nonsense there, because at the same time that the policy is fascist, it is violent, it is authoritarian, it respects the Article 150 of the Constitution. So the police cannot invade their houses. So there is an effort to borrow the solemn veneer or the facade of law, to practice violence, to disguise violence. It seems that law gives you something about legitimacy, about rightness of doing things. So this calls my attention in the movie for sure. So yeah, that's my short comment. I wanted to hear Lázaro.
Thank you, Conrado. Would you like to come in, Allyne, before Lázaro responds?
Okay, Siri, can you repeat the question? I'm not sure if I get it, everything.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
It goes to Conrado's last point. The way in which the film has this ambiguous or multi-faceted perspective on the law, that it uses. The law appears in many different forms. It has this sort of small protection, but it is also used it is also, I mean, the regulations that are being issued and the way in which law is being used, but also law, as you said earlier, that the law is used to push for reparations, and when there is a success, there is also a backlash. And I think it also speaks, I mean, if we think about Brazil today, I think if you think about indigenous rights and protection of indigenous territory, for instance, there is this way in which the law on the one hand is quite strong as law, but then it also has this political, it sort of also has sparked a political backlash in some ways in terms of policy that for me, the film also commented on to some extent. So I just wanted your perspective on that, because to me, it shows so many things that it's not so easy to see necessarily in everyday life.
Okay, thank you for repeating the question. For me, I thought about many things. First of all, the very first scene, you have the black lawyer like talking and the judges in the cell phone. For me, it's something very interesting because sometimes sometimes I work as a criminal law, and sometimes, I mean, we have black youth people, mostly black men, who are condemned because they are recognized by someone saying they are in the crime scene, and although they don't have strong elements to prove the person was there, sometimes you have the person condemned even though you have convicted, sorry, even though you have some strong point to say that the people wasn't there or something. And sometimes I feel like as a lawyer, we are talking like for no one, like they are not really listening. And one time a client asked me seriously if I was there, if I was in the judgment, because if I was there, if I made my argument was like kind of obvious that the judge would follow me on my argument. And I said, I was there, I said everything, and the result is the same. So for me, this is very interesting, the films, because sometimes I feel I'm really living a dystopic scene when I'm talking about law, because first of all, even though you have these important laws, anti-racism for indigenous land or for maroon communities, and you also have this backlash. But for me, the lesson important of the movie about law is that you cannot disassociate law of politics, because many times people want to pass law as something neutral, meritocratic, how the judge is just saying the law and applying the neutral and hypothetical rule to the concrete fact. And in many times you have these you have the politics, like the national humor about something. You also have the beliefs that the governor and the judge have. You had all the bias the judge had, so you have to use all of that to understand what law is. But also, even though we are right now living a moment of backlash, I believe that we only have backlash because we are in the right direction. I mean, you cannot change power without, like, people don't give power by themselves. So we are fighting for, like, broad the concept of rights, to broad the number of people who have rights. So the people who are used to have the power and to have privilege, of course, they will mobilize the power they have to give backlash, to impose backlash to the rest of the population. So for me, even though it's terrible to live backlash, I think the things you can give for the world is our possibility of resistance. And I think to learn resistance, how to resist, and how to even think about other ways of living, as they did in the Afro bunkers, like the quilombos you have in Brazil. It's also a lesson of justice. Is a lesson of justice also to the judges and to the courts we have in Brazil. So for me, it was interesting, but sometimes I really feel that as a lawyer today, I live these things. I'm just saying, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I have the law, I have the best arguments, and I think I'm right, but I lost the case because the political background, the racism and the sexism and a lot of things together really do not give me what the law say I should have.
Ai, que pergunta maravilhosa. Era dar a oportunidade de falar um dos aspectos do filme que ninguém me perguntou até agora. Eu não sou do campo do direito, o filme teve assessoria jurídica para entender como fundamentar essa lei fictícia, mas tem uma coisa que sempre me intrigou, é como as leis podem expressar o seu tempo e com a distância desse tempo, como a gente percebe algumas coisas absurdas na lei, né? Dando alguns exemplos. Já foi lei mulher não votar no nosso país. Foi permitido por lei, em algum momento, você escravizar pessoas e tê-las trabalhando para você sem remuneração. A gente já teve uma lei que permitia, por exemplo, que filhos de fazendeiros entrassem nas universidades sem fazer vestibular, porque considerava-se que isso ia desenvolver a agricultura do país. Existia uma cota para filhos de fazendeiros. A imunidade parlamentar, por exemplo, que foi criada com o sentido de proteger os deputados para terem direito livre à opinião, hoje em dia é usada como subterfúgio para não julgar pessoas que cometeram crimes. Isso tudo sempre me intrigou muito. Isso é uma coisa que me intrigou muito. E eu queria muito não fazer uma lei simples. Foi, inclusive, tema de muito debate, né, com produtores, distribuidores e etc., porque eles achavam que o filme ficava um pouco mais confuso ao colocar esses estágios da lei. Mas era muito importante porque eu queria, ao falar sobre essa lei, falar também sobre o caminho que a sociedade vai percorrendo ao construir a sua história, né? Me interessava muito falar sobre esta construção jurídica deste tempo lá no futuro da história do medida provisória. Desculpa, Miguel, falei muito rápido.
A wonderful question. It gives me an opportunity to speak about something that I have not, up to this point, been asked before. First of all, he made it very clear that he doesn't come from like a law, a legal background, and he had consultants that helped him devise a very complex law that had some relationship with how things really work, but of course it was complex and fictitious, but for him, it's super interesting because when you look from a historical and retrospective point of view, you realize that what was law in the past, and he listed a bunch of those, and I confess I missed like maybe one or two, but he talked in the past, like women couldn't vote, it was lawful to own slaves, and politicians have certain kind of immunity, and like the owners of the large, the sons of the large landowners in Brazil could attend college without doing any tests to be accepted and get in. All of those things were law at some point. And looking retroactively, in retrospect, laws paint a picture of the times in which they are created. So this film had this idea as well. This complex system of laws that he devised in the screenplay had an idea to paint a picture of the times where the film takes place, and it relates a lot to reality. So it was a big debate with the distributors, with the producers, because there was an argument that claimed that the film would have been a little bit more complicated, perhaps for the audiences to digest, in case the legal aspects of the film played a tremendous role. But he thought that was the point. It was very, very important to base the story on that particular law that you see depicted in the film. So
thank you all. Thank you all very much. Actually, our time is up, which as it just ran too quickly, but I will give all of you, if you have something you would like to say to everyone in the end, I would like to give you all the word. So maybe I'll do it in the reverse order. So Allyne goes first, and then Conrado, and then Lázaro at the end.
Okay, I don't want to say much more. I mean, I have a lot more to say, but because of the time, I don't want to say much more. So I just want to say thank you very much. Was a very good opportunity to be here. I'm feeling now very privileged because I saw the movie first of all my friends, and I will comment with everyone. So I'm very excited to be that. And I mean, when you work with human rights, sometimes you don't have exciting news. So today I have one. So I'm really glad to be here. I hope you have a lot of success, more success with the movie in Brazil. And I really wanted to say thank you for your work.
Conrado.
So, well, first of all, thank you very much, Siri, for the invitation. It was a big pleasure to see Lázaro. This is a film of hope and reconciliation, and I was really moved by it. And I have 10 students at least here watching who didn't have the chance to watch the movie. So please, Lázaro, tell us when it is going to come up in the Brazilian screens. But it was a really big pleasure to be here. Thank you, Lázaro, Siri, and Allyne.
Lázaro, you need to unmute.
Sorry. Eu que agradeço imensamente a Allyne, Conrado, por poder falar um pouquinho sobre esse filme, que está na minha vida há tantos anos e que no ano passado eu fiquei muito frustrado porque nós não pudemos lançar ele, porque o lançamento dele seria exatamente dia 25 de abril e a pandemia já estava instalada. Confesso que eu já não tinha mais tanta paixão por essa história e por esse filme por causa da frustração que eu vivi no ano passado. E, de repente, agora, com a exibição dele nos festivais e com as conversas que nós estamos tendo como essa, eu voltei a entender qual é a importância dessa história. De uma história que foi construída com o talento e o empenho de muita gente. Então, além de agradecer o convite para estar aqui nesse papo tão rico do festival, pedir para que as pessoas assistam o filme nos festivais que ele estiver passando, eu quero também deixar um agradecimento especial à minha equipe, que eu sei que tem muita gente que está aqui, e é uma equipe de profissionais incríveis do cinema brasileiro, que nesse momento, inclusive, não estão podendo trabalhar por causa das restrições que estão acontecendo. É o nosso momento, mas são pessoas a quem eu sou muito grato por tudo que elas colocaram de suas almas nessa história. Foi um filme feito com paixão. Não tinha ninguém nessa equipe que não tivesse absolutamente apaixonado, e a assinatura de todos eles está em todo o filme. Essa história não é de Lázaro Ramos, e é por isso que esse filme não se assina como um filme de Lázaro Ramos. Eu assino como diretor e roteirista. Esse é um filme feito por homens e mulheres, na sua maioria negros e negras, inclusive, e colocaram um pouquinho da sua história, dos seus afetos nos seus trabalhos. Então, muito obrigado pelo convite.
So, thank you immensely, Allyne and Conrado, for being here in this discussion. It's an amazing discussion. This film has been in my life for many years, and we're scheduled to release last April 25th. But then, because of COVID, we couldn't do it. And of course, that was very frustrating. And due to this process, I confess I lost a little bit of the passion for this project. They're so important to me. But now, with opportunities like this, and conversations like this that are so important, I really understand the importance of bringing this film to a public, bringing the film to life. So thank you so much for this. And he brings up something about the crew. Thank you so much for this crew. This film was done by all of us, and the film has everybody's signatures in it. This is not entirely Lázaro Ramos' film. This is a film where every single person involved in the crew was completely in love with this mission, was in love in making this film. There was not one person who was not absolutely in love while making this process. And that's why you don't see this film, the film is not credited as by Lázaro Ramos. I directed the film, but it's a film that has all of our signatures together. So thank you so much profusely to everybody involved who might be here listening to this conversation. And thank you so much for the opportunity to speak about the film here at this festival, this particular conversation.
E eu esqueci de responder uma pergunta do Conrado. O filme está planejado para estrear no Brasil em agosto, mas naturalmente nós vamos levar em consideração o que estiver acontecendo com a pandemia no nosso país, para decidir se vai mesmo ser lançado em agosto.
Que bom, Lázaro, obrigado. Foi um prazer.
They're planning to release the film in August, depending on how the pandemic plays out.
That's good to hear. Thank you all so much. This has been an amazing, amazing discussion. And I also would like, of course, I would like to thank the panelists so very much. First of all, Lázaro Ramos, Conrado, Allyne. But I also want to thank the people who really, really wanted this to happen. Of course, Hübner, who was behind Cine Latino, who brought the film here, made it possible for people to watch it here, but also online at the Bergen International Film Festival. I don't know if that is accessible from Brazil. No, it's not. I'm just looking at him now. But also our two, we have at the Central Law and Social Transformation 2 Brazilians. So Lara Cortes, who you just saw, and also Ana Cortes, who's also here now, who have been extremely enthusiastic and instrumental in making this happen. So thanks to everyone so much, and enjoy the rest of the day. And I also wanted to just say that Lázaro, the start, when you reminded us that in the last 24 hours in Brazil, that actually 3,251 deaths from COVID has happened in Brazil. I mean, in Norway, we have 640 in the whole year. I mean, it's almost impossible to take in. And I think that is also a very important, of course, the film is not about COVID, but it is about how politics trumps humanity in some ways. And that is also a very important reminder. So we'll go with all both sort of the whole range of emotions that the film brings out and that this discussion has brought out, which is of humanity and hope, but also of the need for resistance in so many different ways. So thank you, everyone.